If you've never played the God of War games, you still probably recognize the marked gray-skinned warrior. But who is he, and why is he gray? Hi, I'm ALLI EMBERS. This and more coming up next on All In.
The gods of Olympus have abandoned me.
God of War. Wow, I'm not even sure where to begin. Santa Monica Studios and Sony really created something revolutionary here. It's hard to imagine what single-player campaigns would be like without these games. Beautifully elaborate and captivating to the very last detail. I love where tragedy and crippling anger meets hope and determination in these games. They leave you feeling torn, disagreeing with the vulgarity of Kratos' actions, yet you still can't help but feel empathy for this man. His story is so intricate, in fact, it's hard to narrow down the series just in a few minutes. But I'm gonna try. The successful God of War collective began its journey in 2005 with God of War 1. The story takes place in ancient Greece and surrounds Kratos, a gifted warrior and captain of the Spartan army. One fateful day on the battlefield, Kratos' life was near its end. He pled to the God of War Ares to save him, promising his very soul and perpetual service to the gods. After being spared, Kratos obeyed every word of his sadistic master, taking down whole nations and slaughtering all that crossed him. Tricked by Ares, he mistakenly murders even his own wife and daughter. Betrayed and full of rage, he confronts Ares. His response? His family was only a distraction in unlocking his full potential. Condemned to forever wear the ashes of his deceased family by the very gods he served for over a decade, a determined Kratos sets out to destroy his deceitful savior. As it turns out, there was a war within Olympus. The other gods grew tired of Ares and his violent rebellion against the vow of humanity, so the other gods aid Kratos in his quest for revenge. He discovers that what he needs to kill a god is to find and open Pandora's box. And eventually, he does. His vengeance is complete, and now that Ares is gone, all that's left is pain and the haunting memories of what he had done to his family. He begged the gods to take away his memories, but they abandoned him. Yikes. A hopeless and broken Kratos takes a step off a cliff to his death. Or so he hoped. Athena then rips him out of the sea to which he plunged himself in, brings him back on that cliff, and says, "We gods cannot allow one that has served us so well to take your own life. Instead, take Ares' throne." The first God of War ends with Kratos traveling up the steps of Olympus to accept his role as the new God of War. Only, the story doesn't end there. Before we jump into God of War 2, it's worth mentioning here that there is a prequel and side stories in this series, including God of War Ascension and Chains of Olympus. Most notably though, is God of War Ghost of Sparta. This is where you meet Kratos' mom and discover that he has a brother. Believed to be dead, it surfaced that he was actually kidnapped by the gods. Moving on to God of War 2, it picks up with the Spartans waging war on all of Greece, led by Kratos himself. Only this time, he's immortal, and slightly larger. Shunned and cast away by the other gods, Kratos spent most of his time plotting destruction. After all, who needs friends or family when you have an entire army at your disposal? Athena, seeing his relentless acts of rage, pleads with him to see reason. She warns that Olympus's rage was growing. She wanted to protect him, but when he declines her, she has no other choice. Athena conspires against him. Zeus, then having his own agenda, hands over the Sword of Olympus to Kratos to help stop her. The tables turn very quickly though, when Zeus then impales him with the very sword he had granted him. Betrayed, yet again, Kratos is plunged into the underworld. But this isn't the end of our Spartan. Under the guidance of the Titan Gaia, Kratos escapes the underworld and learns of a new way to change his destiny. After test and trial, he finds the Temple of the Fates, defeats his sisters, and goes back in time to stop his death and kill Zeus. He takes the sword and strikes it at the King of Olympus when Athena dives in front of the blade, taking the fatal blow. When he asks her why sacrifice yourself, she delivered one crucial line.
You, his own son.
His son?
Zeus, the big guy, he's your daddy!
I know, mind blown. Engulfed in anger, Kratos returns to the Island of the Fates to recruit the Titans for one last push against Olympus. Oh, and remember the part where Ares was the one who planned his family's demise? Yeah, that was actually all Zeus. Not exactly the dude we read about in books or grew up seeing in movies.
Look how you've grown.
But after all, what can you expect from a guy whose father eats his own children? You see, Zeus killed his father Kronos. It's fear that drives his bloodlust for Kratos. Fear that history will repeat itself. God of War 3 picks up on Mount Olympus, Kratos with the Sword of Olympus in hand on the back of Gaia. He and the Titans make their way up the mountain to destroy Zeus and all of Olympus itself, taking down every god that gets in his way. When it seems victory is near, Zeus strikes down Fury on Gaia, knocking Kratos off the mountain. He is left stranded, and a deceitful Gaia is no help. He finds himself in the underworld yet again. Athena in astral form then appears to him, gives him a new set of blades, and helps guide him on his path to vengeance. This guy has just been toyed with and puppeted by the gods his whole life. It's no wonder he's so angry. Retrieving the Sword of Olympus, taking the very soul of Hades, he takes down all that cross his path. Upon his journey, he meets Pandora. She helps him to find the box so he can once and for all be rid of Zeus. Only the box was empty? Turns out he had gotten all that he needed out of it the last time, hope itself. He had what he needed to kill Zeus this whole time. It's here, right before he kills Zeus, that we see actual heart in Kratos. Zeus is defeated, and when Athena begs him to give him back what he took from Pandora's box, instead, he took the Sword of Olympus and pierced it into himself. This leaves so many questions, because there's another god of war. Kratos is alive. He's older, wiser, way less angry, and has a son? This isn't the same place either. This time our Spartan is in Midgard. Yep, a land from Norse mythology. This was released in 2018, 8 years after God of War 3, and the first to come out on PS4. It's also suspected to be set hundreds of years later in time. It significantly changed up the gameplay from its earlier successors in the best way possible in my opinion. Now, I don't want to give too much of this game away, because it really is one of the best in the decade and you really should play it for yourself. But here's the gist of it. He's worked hard to forget his past and start a new life, and it's no surprise that the game starts with tragedy. His love, the mortal Fae, is dead, so him and his son Atreus set out to find the highest peak on the tallest mountain to scatter Fae's ashes as her dying wish. Along the journey, they travel to different realms and meet others who know Kratos is a god, but more importantly, that the boy is a demigod. There's no shortage of friends that hate them along the way. There's a giant serpent, a witch, quarreling dwarf brothers, and a talking head, who happens to be one of my favorites from the game. When the two run into trouble, Kratos has no other choice but to dig up his old blades and travel down that path he's worked so hard to forget. And when it becomes clear that Atreus is at risk for not knowing his true nature, he has to tell him everything. In conclusion, they find that Jotunheim has the mountain they seek. Upon their arrival, they are met with prophetic drawings, their very journey depicted on the walls. They discover that Fae, the boy's mother, actually wasn't immortal at all. Spoiler alert, she was a giant, making Atreus half god, half giant. His kind did have another name for him though.
The giants called me Loki?
So, there you have it. Now you know a little more about the series. If you haven't played these games yet, you really should. The latest God of War and the remaster of God of War 3 is on PS4. And you can actually play the other God of War games through PlayStation Now. And so my friends, I leave you with one final, yet random thought. In the ultimate bad boy battle, who would win? Kratos, Hulk, or Vegeta? I'll leave you to your debates. Until next time, I'm ALLI EMBERS. You can catch me on my Instagram and TikTok at ALLI EMBERS Games, or catch me on my Twitch at twitch.tv/ALLI EMBERS. See ya!